The Insta-Learning Board is something that we typically introduce after we've introduced the movable alphabet. It's a really good way for kids to reinforce the concepts of sound recognition and letter recognition itself. So the very first thing that you would introduce to the movable or the Insta-Learning Board is just removing the pieces. There are a couple of different boards, and so depending on what board you have, they'll do different things with it. My favorite board is this one where it has a direct match underneath the letter. So these are all lowercase letters underneath and lowercase letters as the movable insets. There are some boards that have uppercase letters on the bottom, and then you're matching upper to lowercase. So the board itself, so that board is just more complex to begin with. This board can be used by younger students who just have direct letter recognition. If you have a group of kids who don't recognize their uppercase letters, then that board that you guys have would be a little bit more complicated for them. So the very first step in introducing the Insta-Learning Board would be to remove all the pieces and then just make sure the children know how to put the pieces back in the board and recognize that matching component. So once you know that they can actually put the board back together, then you can introduce strips. You want to make sure you don't jump to introducing strips, even if they might understand some of those concepts, if they can't do the board, because then you're going to be putting the board back together, or you're going to have to rely on older students. Exactly. So only introduce the board by itself before you introduce it with strips. Once you've introduced the movable alphabet, then they should be able to work on some of these other strips in here. There is a whole set of strips that's just the direct match again. So if you have students who are just practicing that direct match, that's great. The nice thing about the board is it is in alphabetical order. So if they're struggling, you can introduce the A, B, C, D, have them sing the song to find the letter, which that can be helpful too. These are non-alphabetical order, and so it's just a direct matching activity. And then there's finding the missing letters. And these are uppercase, so again, a little bit more complex, but it's also alphabetical order, so you're finding the missing letter here. So A, B would be next, C, D, and so finding those matches. The really great thing about the Insta-Learning Board is really is one of those auto education materials where the control of error is very heavy. So if they pick the wrong letter, it's not going to fit. If they pick the
Some
right,
kids, they just like try all whole things and then they pick theirs.
and then they find it.
They find it, yeah. That's
And if you have children that are doing that, it's either that they're not ready for the material, or that's just a point of interest that they find really interesting. And so as long as they're not misusing the material, then yeah, that's okay. So it's almost like confirming, like I know what the answer is, but I just want to make sure that nothing else is going to fit in this spot. So you'll have students that do that too.
If it doesn't fit, then they get confused and all that. But I think we have the little ones. I think they just go with the letters. You know, they don't bother about uppercase or lowercase. So they just see the C. So they were trying to find the C.
That's good. Yeah, and some of them look very similar, upper and lowercase, so that's helpful too for those ones. So that's another strip that you can introduce next. And then other ones, you're working on a lot of beginning letter sounds. So these ones that have the pictures and then it has a written word and then the missing beginning letter sound would be appropriate for your students who've introduced to movable alphabet and specifically working on beginning letter sounds. So again, it's identifying, they may need some assistance with these in the fact that I don't expect them to read the full words. They're not going to infer what the last sound is. So these are going to be word families. IN on this particular strip, so they all end in N. So as a teacher, you're going to be able to figure out what the word is, but it might not be obvious to a student. So like for this one, for example, I might think it's like a flipper, or I've never seen anything like it before, so I don't know what it is, but it's a fin. So you may have to go over what the actual pictures are before you just let them run with it. But again, it has that control of air, so pin here. So once a child has completed a strip, then, and I'm assuming that's when. Yay! Then I don't know if you guys still have them, but there are
We
some
have a couple
sheer.
homes, but not a lot. We still have it.
Okay, cool. So there are actual little
We're
pieces
not doing
of
that.
paper.
We're not using this because they are wasting a lot, so we stopped doing that. No.
Okay. Well, you can do it kind of like the metal insets where you limit the number of papers a student
Yeah.
can use per day. You could do the same type of thing there. So you could do 5 today. You can keep working with them. but we're
Yeah,
only
they
gonna
do
5
all the
papers.
shapes. Most of them, I mean, some of the kids, you know, they do all the shapes.
Yes, they love all of that.
Yeah, I saw like 5
So
is more than 5. If there's no shape, I put in the trash. Today I do like 3 or 4 for the
Mhm.
Olivia. I'm like, girls, it's
Just
going.
Kept
And
going.
then she's just stopped that after that.
Front and back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We do
front
front
and
and back.
back.
Yeah.
Well, the little strips of paper, they're this size, so they're just little rectangles, and they're sheer, and so you lay it over the
Put it
top,
on,
you
yeah.
close them, and then I would take a pen, a crayon, thank you, and then they can see through, and they can actually trace the letters underneath, and so that's a little souvenir for them to be able to take home and share with their parents that they got to form those words, and of course the parents aren't going to know what the work is. You might have to send them a picture to show them what they did with it. So what you need to do is, if whatever strips you have, look through them to see what is appropriate to introduce at what time. This is a supplemental material. It's not really a Montessori material, but we have found it very useful for children to be able to practice that repetition of letter identification and sound identification. So use it however you need to in your classroom to support where your child is. I love those beginning letter sound strips.
Especially after they're
maybe we
starting
can
with pink
put-
material.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, exactly. So we're going to get to why I'm introducing this today to go along with the reading program. Exactly.
No, I'm just saying that maybe we can put a little so that they
Yes.
don't play with them.
Yes, and you can
So,
separate them out. Miss
yes,
Stace, right
mention-
behind you, there's a little basket.
Those
So you
Put
can,
little-
yeah, so you can just put out a few at a time, or you could even label them with like what level of student would be able to work with this material, or group different sounds together that you want them to work on. So yeah, keep that in mind. I would never give a child this
No,
full
yeah.
tray and just be like, go for it,
Yeah, there's-
unless they're really far along in the reading program.
but we have to introduce them first, just with a few, the
Mhm.
basic one, you know, and then we can
Yes.
go further.
Exactly. Let's see if there's anything else. Okay, so that is all I would introduce before you get into the pink material. And then I'm going to come back to this to show you some of the strips that you would introduce once you're in the pink material.
Well, that's it.
Any other questions about the Insta-Learning Board?
They can have their necklace, that dress.
Miss Stace,
and
would
then
you
all
mind
the-
taking this? Thank you.
This one's kind of like the jam picture on the pink material. Just kind of gives you the answer.